All right, so some dark days for Mexico. Not only did they get their asses slapped by the U.S. men's national team in a 3-0 loss in the Nations League semifinals, they did win the third place game, so they got that going for them, winning 1-0. And but that wasn't enough. They got the bronze medal. Diego Cocca has been announced as an ex-coach of Mexico, only 5 months in charge. He coached 7 games. He had 3 wins, 3 draws, and 1 loss. 10 goals for, 8 against. Not that great, Heath Pearce.
I love when something goes wrong. The picture selection that you put out is never like them celebrating a goal. It's always that, like, that is a proper frown. That's like literally somebody just whispered in his ear and was like, "You're fired." And now he's just sort of like staring off into the distance. But yeah, look, I think, his style of play doesn't fit. And actually, Herculez Gomez said it the other day, which was like his style of play doesn't fit the Mexican sort of DNA of the type of the team.
But we knew that when we got hired. I mean, this guy coached Atlas. He played ultimately a 5-3-2. How do you think the guy is going to come in and play? I mean, that's what had him lead Atlas to success and win their first trophy. I know he had a cup of coffee with Tigres before taking over Mexico, but there was only one style he was going to play that he's been sticking with throughout, and that's not the DNA of Mexico's national team. And so it was always going to play out this way, in my humble opinion.
Also,
I was just surprised that they fired him so quickly.
But also, like, that team was crap on the field, right? When you're playing US Mexico, we had a lot of tactics, but more than anything, it was just get out there and fight, compete for every ball. And the US ran all over them. And at no point did Mexico come to life in a pro-Mexico crowd in a way that felt like, oh no, the tides are, like, Jimmy, you and I both played Mexico, and those moments happen where you feel that shift and you're like, oh man, this was going really well. And now you can feel them leaning on us.
Yeah,
the crowd's into
That's
it.
true.
And you're like, dude, we've got to weather this for whether it's a minute or 20 minutes. It was like that was like a very tough thing. And they just had no energy to come out with that. So I think, again, smart on FMF to make the change early now, because you still got time to bring in whoever that next person is going to be to get things on the right path. But I still look at that player pool, and Mexico's player pool is not what it once was.
No, it's not. No, 100%. Yeah. I think what's interesting is that Jimmy Lozano has been named interim for Mexico for the Gold Cup. And I guess maybe they're taking notes from us that, hey, look, at an interim coach can have success. So we're going to throw some other guy out there and make it happen. And there's a great comment as well about, well, now Mexico can hire Pep and have Mourinho and Ancelotti as assistants, just because those guys are just going to be available for any team in North America, national team that needs.
Tigres could do that. Tigres could afford bringing Pep in. They spend everything they make, they spend. But the Mexican national team, I don't. Nah, come on now.
Yeah, it's interesting times for Mexico in particular. I think they have to take a real hard look at where they are and what they need to do, and they don't have as many players over in Europe. And obviously that's been a big point of contention for them and their fans, for a long time. How do we get, and their journalists, like, how do we get more players playing over in Europe, playing in the biggest games? I know Chucky Lozano just won the Scudetto with Napoli, and Jimenez has been great in the Dutch league. Raul Jimenez, obviously, with that unfortunate head injury not too long ago, a year and a half ago, maybe. It's not been the same player since. Chicharito never gets called in. Carlos Vela doesn't seem interested. And it felt like maybe also, I think they relied on that older generation maybe a little bit longer than they should have. I know Herrera still gets some looks, but Guardado in particular. And when you continue to rely on guys that are of a certain age, maybe mid-30s, even older than that, you're taking away opportunities to blood other players and give them opportunities to step up and showcase themselves. We had to do that. We were forced to do that in 2018 when we didn't qualify. And obviously we've been benefiting from a great generation. But I actually think our infrastructure is pretty sound, and it's looking pretty good. And Mexico's not looking so great right now. So I'm kind of curious to see who they hire, obviously, first and foremost, and then what kind of changes are they going to make to their infrastructure overall, because it doesn't look great for them in the near future.
Yeah, and I think, again, the emergence of MLS academies has changed the dynamic of our player development, right? Almost every player now, outside of maybe call it Serginho Dest and Anthony Robinson, Christian Pulisic, I guess, pre-academy, have some sort of touch and feel through a player development system as being in young professional systems all the way through. Mexico also used to export a lot more, and they've got only a few players really pushing the envelope in Europe right now compared to the player pool that we have as young players, whether they started in MLS or not. And now the dual national approach has obviously been phenomenal for us and being able to bring. So they've just got a lot to fix, and sometimes that's a generational shift. And I don't think they really. That should have happened 3 years ago for Mexico, right?
Yeah,
and they've
right,
missed that entire window, like you said, of bringing players through. Maybe that's a developmental problem. Maybe that's again relying too much on the veterans, or a combination of everything, including the domestic
and the young players not being good enough.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, it's interesting. It actually feels like we might have to have a new rival, and it's not Mexico, it's Canada. So that'll be interesting. Now, John Herdman, the coach of Canada, he came out and said after this game against the U.S., he's vented some frustration with his federation. And he said, this is his quote, "We've got to get serious about winning a World Cup. When you play at home, you get a chance to win it. We've brought a World Cup to our country, and we're not serious about winning it. And you see how close that team is tonight. Tactically, we were there. Chances, shots, we were there. The margins were so tight tonight, so tight. We've got to get real and quick because these players, they deserve it." Now, to give you some context of where this frustration comes from, Canada only had a 4-day camp coming into this Nations League. And I think his frustration is starting from that, maybe some other things that we are unaware of, or stuff that's been coming out just due to the lack of support of the Canadian Federation. But they haven't won a trophy since 2000 when they won the CONCACAF Gold Cup. And they have the talent. This is a golden generation for them. So for them not to get that type of support, we've already seen it on the women's side for Canada, not getting necessarily the support that they deserve as well, given their quality and their success.
That's a business,
tough.
though.
Yeah, Mexico's got some issues. Canada's got some issues, and I know that we rehired Greg Berhalter, and that's creating its own issues. But it just feels like we're in a healthier place, and that feels awesome.
Yeah, but I agree. But it's a business, right? These are businesses. You've got to build the infrastructure, like where it comes from, commercial dollars, right? They need support in stadiums. They need commercial dollars. You need all. It's not just the federation taking money from youth sport and just being able to pay the men and women's first teams, right? It's youth team infrastructure. It's all those things. And it requires significant dollars to take it serious. Now, winning the World Cup, I think that's, I get that as a North Star. I think Canada are quite a ways off of that, as are the U.S. At this point. But there does need to be the federation recognizing we should probably take some cues from other federations that have advanced and moved forward based on the quality that we have on the men's and the women's side at the first team. Leverage that to get the dollars we need to take this more serious, so that we can have longer camps, so we can have better player development, so we can have better player monitoring, so that we can build our youth national teams in a way that we're developing players. You've got the Canadian Premier League, you've got Major League Soccer connected to it all. Like, you need to be able to start building that infrastructure so that you can drive those dollars in, because it's not just like some like Mr. Canada writing a check to be like, well, either I'm going to write it or not. You have to have the funds to be able to do it. I don't know what their financial numbers are, but our umbrella within the U.S. soccer circles is able to pull dollars commercially as well as through the sport itself, that can help to fund all of these teams. But we also ran out of money in the last couple of years and need to rebuild those coffers. At one point, we were sitting on like 150 or 125, whatever that exact number is. Don't quote me on that, but that helped. Then it got depleted. We lost the developmental academy, which was a financial driver, and now the U.S. has to rebuild that after breaking off of Soccer United marketing towards 2026 to get the money to then advance the program forward.